Hello and welcome to this edition of Sled Talk. My name is Jaret Smith, Snowmobile Product Manager for the North American Snowmobile Division. Today we have another new vlog for you. It's a version of our Yamaholics. We initially talked with Tom at Totally Yamaha, and I'm excited to say today we have actually a Yamaha employee from Yamaha Motor Canada. His name is Randy Swenson. You might have seen him in the snowmobile industry, but I'll let Randy introduce himself and give a little background on what he does for Yamaha, but also what he does within the snowmobile community. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks, Jaret. Nice to be with you today. Here we are out in British Columbia. I'm Randy Swenson. I am the Regional Sales Manager for Western Canada, of course, with Yamaha Motor Canada. Been at this incredible company, celebrating the passion for 35 plus years. So it certainly has turned into the dream career, if you will. And, certainly happy to be here with you today, Jaret.
Thanks. We're happy to have you today, Randy. So give us some background on how you got into snowmobiling, and I think we'll eventually touch upon it, but in things like Thunderstruck, for example, a video series of highlighting some extreme mountain riding. How did you get into snowmobiling, and how did it eventually lead to some of the other on-video appearances?
All right, that stuff. My DNA really dates back to my childhood, and, I was born 100% Scandinavian, so I really have a true appreciation and love for winter and winter sports. Growing up in Saskatchewan, there wasn't a lot of mountains there, but we sure had access to snowmobiles, on the farm type thing. But I was a skier before. I always wanted to skis, and I remember for my 9th birthday, my parents bought me skis, and that was kind of my passion. And I got into ski racing and traveling to the mountains, and my love of the mountains kind of picked up, and got into ski racing across the country at almost a national level type thing. And then coaching, and then I just had to go to British Columbia, man. That was like that's where I needed to be. I needed to be in those mountains. And, ski resorts can only did it so long for me. And then the freedom of snowmobiling. And so really about 1993 was my real first entry into like kind of hardcore mountain sledding. Buying my first sled. I had a couple sleds previous at Yamaha, but buying my first sled and customizing it or mountainizing it, because early days, as you might know, Jaret, a mountain sled was, maybe a trail sled that a lot of mountain guys had to modify and make mountainize it, if you will. So we were, making longer tracks and paddles, bolting plastic paddles on them, and creating 2-inch tracks out of plastic paddles. And so, it really has evolved over the years, and, got into custom building of different snowmobiles. So yeah, I've spent a lot of money along the way, but thoroughly enjoyed each and every moment of it. So that was, and then I kind of ditched the ski thing, and it's been all snowmobile and all freedom ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, not long ago, 136 was a mountain snowmobile. Now it's just about the minimum for most. Well, it is a minimum trail length basically we make now is a 137-inch. So wasn't that long ago. That was a full-fledged mountain sled.
Yeah, remember that, Chris Reed. Remember that 136 or mountain sleds. And yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think in 2000 we introduced the longest production snowmobile mountain sled at the time in the Mountain Max, the 141. That was our the 141 2000 all blue Mountain Max was the longest, and then right away after that, then the race was on. It was a 151, and and on and on and on type thing. So yeah, you're right. The mountain guys have always been hardcore passion, and certainly wanted to push the envelope, if you will. And you know what? Each and every snowmobile mountain sled today is certainly something that anybody could ride. Yeah.
And speaking of that, you've built some quite modified snowmobiles over the years, and I think you're probably one of the biggest track lengths out there. You have a 174 Sidewinder with quite a bit of work. Do you want to take us through that and how you ended up building that snowmobile and what you built it for?
Yeah. That one over there, you mean? Yeah, that one. That's kind of a current day, like Sidewinder 174. It's obviously longer than OEM length, with a 3-inch track type thing. So super long, super deep lug. We've power added that one. That one runs actually a bigger turbo itself than OEM. So the turbo is upsized. It's all MCX. My friends out of Sweden, they have some great additions and that sort of thing. So bigger turbo, bigger intercooler, extra injectors, a lot of horsepower. So, you know, we're probably pushing another 100 horse over OEM stock, or maybe even more than that. So yeah, that's one, and there's been many, many more along the way.
Now that sled, if I recall, wasn't that on the cover of one of the latest Thunderstruck videos where you're climbing that chute with the rock face all behind you?
Yeah, you're right, Jaret. You know, that was a shot that I'd, you know, this whole chute climbing thing, which was really super popular the last, you know, kind of since four strokes kind of entered the scene back in the early 2000s, you know, then chute climbing really became, the Yamaha four stroke allowed guys to really start aggressively attacking the, you know, that mountainous terrain. It wasn't just hill climbing anymore. It was actually chute climbing. And so what you're looking for, what we were chasing or looking for was, you know, these rocked in rock faces that, you know, maybe heli companies would ski down them. They let their guests ski down them, but we wanted to climb some of this type of terrain, not in the heli zones, but similar type of terrain. And we would chase these sometimes we'd even fly around in a helicopter and look for these nasty spines or these nasty couloirs that we could, you know, we could ascend, and we could make a first ascent up them, you know, and that's kind of what kind of drew me towards this whole chute climbing, and you know, using a lot of those ski lines that I kind of had in my brain, because the fall line is very similar. If you put a ball at the top of that chute and let it roll down the hill, that's the line that you really need to take to go up the hill or up that chute. So you kind of got to use a lot of that mentality to attack those chutes. And you know, it really was through that whole period of, like, you know, RX1s, you know, dating back to this whole, you know, shootout thing that snowmobilers would congregate in certain areas. And I remember going to the first shootout back in 2003 with RX1. I was the only one there with a four-stroke turbo, first four-stroke turbo anybody had ever seen. The next year there was about 7 from what I remember. And the next year there was 50 of these four-stroke turbos, and it just kind of kept ballooning and ballooning until then we had, of course, so we went RX1 turbo to Apex turbo to Nitro turbo, and then beyond type thing, right? So it's and the Nitro really was, you know, it's just a solid machine, very bulletproof, and had great potential and capabilities. And so this whole chute climbing thing really did go. You know, it had a long shelf life, if you will, and it still goes. There's still a hardcore group of guys that do this and chase that stuff. And but yeah, that Sidewinder, that 174 Sidewinder is that was the last really cool cover shot I had, which was Thunderstruck 17, I think it was, and it was a shot I chased for years because it just had to be right, and the conditions and the light, and it was something it's something I chased, and it was something pretty cool. So yeah, pretty
yeah, it was an amazing photo, seeing that Sidewinder climb that chute. And then you talked about it earlier, but I visited a few years ago with Yamaha Fest. I remember hearing the first turbo Apexes climb a hill out there when first time for me experiencing that at a Yamaha Fest event. And I know seeing your Vipex at the time, just unbelievable, the sound of that 4-cylinder turbocharged climbing a mountain with the RPM. I don't think there's a snowmobile that sounds like that echoing off the side of the mountain.
No, Jaret, you know, you're right. There's definitely been a couple of statement type engines produced in the Yamaha world, and one is undoubtedly VMAX 4. You know, has that exhaust note, that sound. Another one is, you know, maybe the Redhead, the 700 triple, or an SRX triple. And then on a 4-cylinder Apex is just it's mesmerizing. It's kind of like life changing, if you will, and to have that sound echoing off rock walls when you're climbing a vertical chute and there's rocks 10 feet on either side of you, and just have that sound just echoing through the terrain. It's like I said, it's kind of life changing, but it's the RPM. The 4-cylinder just makes the RPM that just makes the track. It whips the track so much quicker than a 3-cylinder. And that's why it's still, you know, I have one right here too, a 4-cylinder, and it's got a special place for sure. It's an Ipex as well. So it's,
those are cool. Yeah, so heavily modified. You know, that Apex mill just crammed into a smaller chassis or smaller footprint than ever designed. All those were designed off of a 3-cylinder engine, and to fit that 4-cylinder in there, it's always neat just to see the engineering you've gone through to make that fit and perform so well.
Yeah, and it's there's a couple people that could maybe answer that question. Maybe it was intended, maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure, but it certainly does fit. There's some modifications required, and water pumps being one. But yeah, my friend down in Utah, Scott Stevens, was the first guy that ever showed me that you could put a 3-cylinder or 4-cylinder into the three-cylinder chassis, and that was a Diamond S, that titanium manufacturer there. So it's changed a lot of people, and it's an engine or a power plant that will always have a special place in us Yamaholics' heart for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So since then, we've gone through a few changes. We've added the Sidewinder. I know you're really fond on the 162 Sidewinder MTX, and we still talk about Scandinavian markets. We still have lots of people over there very passionate about that setup. For us in North America, we had to make the tough decision to transition to something that was a bigger volume player for us, and that's the Mountain Max, which I see behind you there. In comparison, being that you have both, when do you choose one? What do you see as the benefit of either, and how do you like the new Mountain Max?
Well, that's a super good question, because you're right. I mean, I think that every dog has his day, as they say. There's a right sled for every type of condition or like mood of the day, if you will. So for Sidewinder, standard like 2019 Sidewinder that I have, it's 100% stock, and I just love riding that. It's it's got smoothness, it's got power, it's got reliability, and it's just amazing the smoothness overall of the package. And you know what, for a 4-stroke sled, I mean it maneuvers really well in the trees, and it really shines in the open terrain. So that's kind of and there's Jaret, I know I've told you this before, but there's a lot of guys that have a strong opinion on the Sidewinder, and they'd love to see something like that in the lineup again with some fewer refinements, if you will. So there's a lot of guys. I think it'll be a hard day to pry a Mountain Sidewinder out of their hands and convert them to maybe the next generation of say Mountain Max or whatever type model. But and that being said, the Mountain Max, I mean, there's a place for that machine for sure, and I thoroughly enjoy riding it. It's the maneuverability is what shines. So if it's a day that it's deep snow and the visibility might not be that great, and you're just going to go and bash around in the trees, yeah, that's a Mountain Max all day long. And that's what's really happened in the market a lot the last several years is, the customer is kind of chasing that boondocking or bushwhacking, whatever you want to call it, that off camber terrain, riding, and that's where Mountain Max it shines. It really does, So it's like I said, every dog has a day, and each sled, there's a sled for every day. So. Yeah, so they're a lot of fun, and it's whatever you're doing outdoors, enjoying recreating in the mountains with your friends or family, and that's kind of what it's all about. So never have a bad day on a snowmobile, as they say.
That's one of the keys and why we thought it was so important to have you on the Yamaholics feature for the Sled Talk is just the arsenal that you have within your garage. Like to go from as far as 174 shoot built Sidewinder to a stock Sidewinder to a Mountain Max. And I know in our recent conversations, I'm a big fan of those SRX triple triples. We even talked about how you and your son were working on an SRX Mountain, which I didn't even know back then. We built one before it transitioned to the Mountain Max. So a little before my time per se, but tell us about that. How did you find it, and how is it going so far, your SRX Mountain build?
Yeah, that's the one that my son found. So my son, of course, went through school and college and working type thing now. So, but always snowmobiled with me. I mean, when he could on the weekends, and it comes from a ski background also, but thoroughly enjoys sledding. And that's something that's been really interesting the last couple of years because, he's riding with me, and he's got some friends riding with him and me. And so we're trying to mentor, some of the younger generation along into the mountain culture, if you will. And that really does, it's not just get on a sled and go ride the mountains and whoop it up, because that's not the way it goes. There's definitely a lot of safety protocols and avalanche education, awareness, knowledge, and you just don't learn that, sitting in front of a screen. So it's all about, safe terrain travel and getting educated and taking those classroom sessions of AST training. So avalanche skills training, in the whole course of, your snow science and getting in the backcountry. So, and then he bought a Mountain Max last year, and so now he figured he should have another sled that he could basically show friends how to get into mountain sledding, if you will. So yeah, we found a Mountain SRX, on the used marketplace, and been a little bit of a work in progress, like a track and some bearings and all that kind of stuff. But 11,000 kilometers on the motor and still going strong. So it's been a lot of fun for sure. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a cool project. And I was excited when I heard that, that you found it and that you're working on one. It's neat to see some of those blue sleds come back to life and still get used to this day. And it's really a statement of what Yamaha stands for with our QDR, like 11,000 mountain K. That's hard kilometers on a snowmobile. That's not like it's trail kilometers. That's a tough day sometimes to get a big 100+ kilometer day on the mountain. That's a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, you're right, Jared. I mean, I know you guys can put some high miles on, like 200, 300, 500K a day. For a mountain rider, like 100K is a big day. Like you are traditionally whipped by the end of that 100 kilometers. It's usually 10 kilometers up and 10 kilometers down the trail, and the other 80 kilometers in alpine terrain, tossing the sled around and not sitting on it, basically standing on it and maneuvering it. So it's 100K. If you get 100K in a mountain day, then you've had a pretty good day. So that's the difference,
That's awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me today, Randy. You've always been a great ally to the North American Snowmobile Division, getting opinions on mountain, what's happening in the mountain segment, even when we introduce models, or I know you drop those lines in my ear all the time about, a Sidewinder longer would be kind of cool, or different suspensions and stuff. So it's always fun just to talk snowmobiles, see what's happening in the mountain market. And we definitely respect all of your expertise in the mountain and all the vehicles you've played with. So I think you're really a true Yamaholic. And I thank you again for joining us today for this segment of Sled Talk.
Well, thanks for dropping by. I really do appreciate it. It's nice to experience this and show to our customers that, hey, Yamaha is a great brand in the mountains, and we've got a lot of faithful guys out there that it'll be like I said, it'll be a long time before you pry a mountain Sidewinder out of their hands. So keep up the good work, everybody, and safe sledding.
Thanks, Randy. We'll see you guys next time as we have our next episode of Sled Talk. So stay tuned in the near future as we roll out more episodes. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the snowmobile season and you have snow in your area and are able to ride. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you guys soon.